Hi, and welcome to Modding Mental Health,
a podcast about video games and, well, mental health.
In this episode, we discuss what remains of Edith Finch. Our conversation includes talks of depression, suicide, child neglect, death, trauma, and pregnancy. Thank you for your time and discretion.
Now that you know what is coming your way, relax, grab a cup of coffee, and discover all of our hidden nooks and crannies. Oh my gosh, hello, Kat. It's been so long.
Hi, how are you? What's going on?
I'm good. How are you?
I'm doing well. It is a new year, new us. Anything new with you?
Yes. Since the last time we recorded, which it's been a while, I've gotten pregnant. I'm very, very pregnant while we're recording this. So, yeah, that's a new thing. I've also had my birthday. So happy 32 to me.
Happy birthday.
Thank you. And that's the big thing, I think. Literally growing. Yeah, that's my news, which is very interesting when you think about the game that we're about to discuss, but more to that later, I think.
Spoilers, they're already jumping ahead.
Ken, what do you have for us? Anything
Honestly,
new in your life?
I mean, we moved into our new apartment. It's a house, but
Whoop, whoop.
moved into our new apartment. Pretty much just setting all of that up. Fun news would be we set up like cat interior furniture, so we have stuff on the walls for the cats to climb on, like that are carpeted.
I love that.
And they love it.
Yes.
So just being a cat family, and
Oh, I'm so glad.
yeah. I've been cooking a lot more, actually. I've been cooking a lot.
I know.
I've been making a lot of Mediterranean meals, mostly because they're healthy. I feel like that's like one of the healthiest things you can make, in my opinion.
They have lots of veggies in them.
Yeah, like for what I like to eat, it's like the healthiest option.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, I just hope this place isn't cursed.
Why are you saying that? That's ominous. What do you mean? I hope this place isn't cursed.
Well, because
have you experiencing a haunting?
I'm not experiencing any hauntings, but it seems like Edith Finch might be.
Wow, what a damn. We're jumping right in. Oh gosh, yeah, we played What Remains of Edith Finch. I will say, I'll be honest, a while ago, we may or may not have recorded this before. Or were we recording it?
When someone gets pregnant and one of us is moving, mixed in with a lot of
there's a lot happening.
Mental disorders, shit happens.
Hey, that's why this is called Modding Mental Health, and we take our mental health more serious than this podcast, and I think everyone should. Honestly, your health is more important than anything. And I will say it's been a while for me since I've played the game. I think I played this last in June and now it's February. But I also opted to not play it again because of some things that are happening in the game. There's a lot of death and there's a lot of child death, and also the main protagonist is pregnant while she walks us through her family story. So because it's so negatively connotated, or there's so many like negative things, at least with the deaths in it, I decided it was going to be way too triggering for me right now to play it again. But I still know the story and I can talk about it. So if I miss little things, that's why. But the story is so ingrained in my brain, honestly, after playing it like 2 or 3 times now. Yeah.
Thinking about it, and I rewatched like a walkthrough, a no commentary walkthrough. Why hasn't it not been adapted into a movie? Why is it not some type of thriller?
You're so right.
Like, it would be so good.
Yeah, maybe because...
Why hasn't it been a movie?
I mean, I'm gonna give like a little short overview. So, What Remains of Edith Finch is a game where the protagonist, Edith Finch, goes back to her family house. I think it's in Washington somewhere, off the coast, a small island. And the house is like this mix and match of different rooms. It looks outside even. For a lack of a better comparison, I'll compare it to the Burrow from the awful franchise Harry Potter, but still, it looks like that. It even inside, it's very mix and match, and it's very dependent on who lived in what room. It's very personalized. It's very stylized in that sense, and the family history is basically that the family is cursed or believes to be cursed. The great-grandfather, or even great-great-grandfather, Odin, came over on a boat from Sweden with the ship on top of it. I have no idea how that went, but it went. It did go poorly because
I don't know how some
wild.
people took the foundation of their house and put it on a boat and like take it with them. That's crazy to me, but people somehow do that. Anyways,
is wild. He does go down with the boat just a mile off the coast, so he's the first victim. So they kind of rebuild and build on top of each other, and like every time a family member gets added, it feels like a room gets added as well.
They say that the cemetery was built before the
first
house.
Thing that was built. That's true. So you can kind of see what kind of game this is going to be. It's quite morbid in a sense. It talks about, or if you at least it seems morbid if you don't talk about death in that sense as much. It takes death. I'm not going to say it feels a little bit unserious at times. Like it's more about the stories of the characters and it's not a somber game by any means. It is quite lively and highlights their character arcs more than their death, but it does always come back to the death of the characters. Most of the family members die when they're very, very young. And we play with through this game as Edith exploring all these rooms, and that by exploring her family history, and also we meet each character in a sense, and they tell us the story of how they died through different kinds of media. During the tour, we find out that Edith, who is 17 years old, I think, is pregnant.
Yes.
Pretty heavily,
She's
I think.
young.
She's 22 weeks, 25 weeks, something like that. In the very, very end, we find out that her narration is actually from a book that she probably wrote for her child. So she must have died either during childbirth. I think it's insinuated because the last scene we have is kind of being birthed from this birth canal ourselves, while Edith narrates and says, I wish you wouldn't read this, but if you do, then I must be gone. So we're listening to all of this as Edith's child, and we are also going back to the house. I think at the very end you can see this, I think, young boy standing in front of the house looking at it in his mother's footsteps, so to say, looking at the house. So even Edith didn't escape the family curse, unfortunately.
No.
But yeah, that's basically the game in a short description. I think one of the most shocking things to me is the family tree. Throughout the story, every time someone dies or we learn someone's story, their character and their date of birth and death gets added to the family tree by Edith. Until in the end, we have this big family tree, so we can see all of their stories. And we can also see from that, I think none of the characters got older than, I think, maybe in their 50s.
I thought the older was Walter. Yeah.
And the only exception is Edie, the grandmother, who Edith has the name from, who was almost 100 years old at the end. But yeah, all the others die quite young, and the youngest is Gregory, who's only a year old when he dies.
And Walter spent 30 years in a basement.
Yeah. So he didn't live either. They all have really sad stories or weird stories, different stories from what we would picture, I guess, of what a normal life would be.
Their deaths are very preventable, and ones that you hear and might say, well, that would never happen to me, until it does.
Exactly. It seems preventable, and at the same time, their deaths seem like something that, like you just said, that could happen, that would happen. For instance, to me, and I'm already jumping into this, the saddest story, because usually you have the deaths from their perspective. As it's happening, they have their story from their perspective, and then you have the death also from their perspective while Edith is learning about it. And the saddest death to me is Gregory, who drowns in a bathtub. It's made to be something quite beautiful. There's I forgot the name of the sound, but it's a classical waltz playing in the background, and then you are like looking at the bathtub from the eyes of this baby sitting at the bottom of it. And then at some point when the water gets too high, you turn into a frog and God, I can't even talk about it. I'm already tearing up.
The song is Waltz of the Flowers from the Nutcracker.
I was going to say Nutcracker, but I wasn't sure.
It plays while Gregory is playing with his toys in the bathtub.
Yeah, he's playing with his toys, and then when the water gets too high, he turns into a frog himself and escapes throughout the drain. It's not meant. It's not painted as this horrible thing. It's painted as this kind of beautiful story, and it's narrated while I think the dad wrote a letter.
Yeah, he writes a letter
through an attorney.
He writes a letter on divorced papers to her.
Yeah.
While you're reading it, you go into the scene.
Yes, and he says he doesn't blame her for what happened. So you have like that in the background, the dad narrating it and talking about, I can't even. I'm tearing up. This is like really sad to me. Also, I'm very emotional right now and hormonal. He just says like he doesn't blame her for what happened, and how he sees Gregor was always this lively and imaginative child, and how he wishes he'd knew what he'd seen, and maybe he had this beautiful thing in his head. So it's kind of like the dad pretending like this is what his son's last vision was. And I think that's what makes Edith Finch, to me, such a profound game. It talks about death, but it talks about it in a very different way than I'm used to in my Western culture. Like it's a little bit more taboo here, I would say.
Yeah.
Like death is not this celebration. It's always a loss. But in this game, it feels like part of it are the celebration of the life and not of the death that came after. And it's this like beautiful transition. So that's, I think, why it's also so ingrained in my brain. Even the colors and the music is so ingrained in it. I think that's why what they do very beautiful there. Like the story could also be a horror story if you go through this house, but it's somehow not. It's not a horror story. It's a story to life. It is on paper, but the game makes it not feel like a horror story at all.
But the visual absolutely is not, because you're right.
Yeah.
How they represent death isn't gruesome or what we're desensitized to. It when you mention that, I think of Calvin's death, where he wants to go around on the swing set, and instead, of course, he flies off, or there's a lot of ambiguity in this game. So we assume he flies off the cliff from the swing set, and instead of going with him and hitting the rocks below, we fly off like we're a bird. And it's, however sad, it's quite beautiful because we fly off into the sunset.
Yes.
Same with Molly's death, as we assume that she starved to death.
Yeah, starved or poisoned herself.
Right, poisoned.
One of the last things she eats was like, I think, toothpaste and holly, the holly plant, which I think is highly poisonous.
No, I definitely agree with the poisoned, and I'm pretty sure like starvation causes hallucinations.
Yeah.
And I wonder, with her consuming all of these toxic substances like toothpaste and of course Holly, if she was then, plus the starvation, if she was then hallucinating herself as all of these different animals because she couldn't satisfy her own hunger, right?
Yes.
Awful and sad.
Yeah, it's like a storybook for all of them. And it is these fantastical stories. And it's also what in the game, the grandmother, Edie, memorializes about all of these deaths. She makes it very fantastical. Like, and that Molly was her own child too. I think I would personally, if that would happen, like I punish my child, I lock them in the room, I don't give them dinner, and then they eat something and it poisons them and they die. I would like beat myself up about that for so long. I wouldn't be able to focus on what made that person special in that moment. And I wouldn't be able to memorialize their death in that way, make it that fantastical story about becoming a cat and then becoming a shark and then becoming a sea monster that just wants to eat, right? But that's what the grandmother chooses to illustrate at the very end. She like leaves this little shrine out.
They're trophies to her.
Interesting. It's definitely a very interesting way of handling it. And we find out that the grandmother is always more like drawn to the fantastical. Like instead of saying that her husband fell off a very faulty water slide and died from the fall, she chooses to say to the papers that a dragon killed her husband because the water slide was shaped like a dragon.
Not only did she say that to the press, but then she also frames the newspaper article about the death. So that's why I say it's almost like trophies, because I don't know if that's even, I guess it's more, I don't even know what I mean by trophies, but I suppose it's just another way to cope. But I don't even know if that's really coping, but maybe it's because I can't imagine myself doing that. If I saw that, I would almost want to not necessarily hide it, but not be reminded of it.
Yeah.
You know, it wouldn't be my first thought to frame a reminder of death.
You know, exactly. And I wouldn't frame it and put it up in my bedroom where I would have to look at it every day. It's a choice she's making. And I still don't know exactly how I feel about it. Because part of me also wants to be a little bit, I don't know, more judgmental. But then also, I guess this is her way of dealing with it. I know not all of her kids always agreed with her. Like Edith's mom, Dawn, is heavily critical more of her. Is it her grandmother, actually? Her mother?
It would be her grandmother.
Her grandmother, actually. So, yeah. And like Dawn is very critical of her grandmother, and she's the reason why the rooms to all these memories are all locked up. They're sealed. And then, what does it say? Edie, so the great-grandmother, I guess, retaliated by drilling little peepholes into each of the doors. But yeah, so not even all of her family is very accepting of her way of living.
No.
It is critical of that.
She's so proud. It's almost, this is what keeps her company.
Yes.
When she's gone, when everyone else is gone, is the reminders and the death of her children that she's now outlived.
Yeah, for children and her grandchildren. She's outlived multiple grandchildren as well. Like Dawn's siblings were Gus and Gregory. So she's outlived them both because they both died as children. So she's seen like her children die and her grandchildren die. I think at that point all of her children are dead as well. Yeah, I don't think I could move back in with my parents having kids now. Like I'm out, so I can see how that causes tension. And especially if you have a grandmother like that, It's not even your parent, it's your grandmother moving back in with them while you have kids. And then they have to build this weird structure on top of the house because all of the rooms are the memorials, so you can't just renovate a room. That is not an option. Each room has to be for a family member.
Especially when they're sealed off.
Well, yeah, that's what Dawn did. Dawn sealed them off because she didn't want Edith or any of her other kids wandering into them. Because I think she felt it was weird, which I understand as well.
For sure.
So was that the story that stuck with you the most, the story of Calvin and how he wanted to become an astronaut? And
so it wasn't Calvin, although I love the imagery of that one, but I think the one that stuck out to me the most and the one I think about the most after playing is the story of Milton.
Oh,
because
okay.
There's really not much there is to go off of it.
Mm-hmm.
And
do you want to give a short overview of the story for people?
I'm trying to think of where he is on the family tree.
Yeah, Milton is Dawn's son, Edith's sibling.
Right. Milton has it's almost like an observatory on the roof. You find a flip book that Milton has made, and when you flip through it, it's Milton painting, and within that painting, there's another flip book, so it's like a painting within a painting, and then he pretty much gives a big bow and goes out this door, and then it's gone. He's left. And I guess Milton has been missing for a long time.
Yeah.
I've watched a lot of analysis videos, and a lot of the ones I've seen, their theories are that Milton escaped the house and got away from the family and essentially, air quotes, got away from the curse. And I didn't take it that way, and I think I've told you this before, because Edith mentions that the house swallowed him up, like he's just gone. And while you're going through the house, you go through a lot of these crawl spaces, and you'll see art that Milton has made because he's an artist. So you know he's been there before because he's left all these artifacts.
Inquisitive artist. He
yes.
learned about the family story long before.
So I took that as, I'm morbid, so I love the optimism of, oh, he escaped the house that's gone. I took it as, oh, he's stuck in one of the crawl spaces and he's rotting in there. He is one with the house now. He died. The house swallowed him, is how I took that.
Very literal, yeah.
So, yeah, I would say that's the story of Milton is the one that stuck out the most and made me feel certain things because it's unanswered. All of them are pretty much answered. This one is so left up to interpretation that it kind of bugs me that there's no answer. If there's a developer listening, can you just tell me?
They're not going to tell you,
what's the thought process?
I don't think they're going to tell you.
Well, I want to know the thought process. Okay, well, it was worth a shot. But, yeah.
No, it's really fair. I do love Milton's story. I think, except for Gregory's story, which is very much in my brain always too much, and it's a very good PSA to
very iconic scene.
It is
not in the way that
it's also really sad because he's so young.
Yeah, if you're chronically online, you might have already seen it.
True,
because I was one of the ones that I had no idea. I had seen Gregory's scene before I even knew it was in What Remains of Edith Finch, and it wasn't until I got to that part in the game where I was like, oh,
you remember
I know what's gonna happen.
Oh gosh.
I know.
Yeah, it might be. Yeah, no, it's very iconic. But aside from Gregory's story, I think the story that stuck with me, one of the stories that's and then still stick with me the most to this day is Lewis's story, and I think that's also very much on point for this podcast because Lewis' story is one of depression mostly,
yes,
and loneliness, and in the end suicide. So I think going over his story also makes sense for. Because I think his story is the most, I think they're all connected to mental health in some way, because there's something going on here with a lot of them. There's a lot of repression going on with a lot of them as well. But Lewis' story is the one where...
A lot of repressed family trauma.
Oh, so much repressed family trauma. But Lewis' story is the one where we actually have a psychiatrist evaluation letter talking about Lewis. So Lewis is Edith's older brother. So he presumably grew up in India for a while before they moved back to the house. So he was used to the life in India, and I think that's a big culture shock for especially young kids when they, move, when you move back with them to a different country, and everything disappears from their life, their peers disappear from their life, and he got homeschooled then by his mom. So he only had his siblings and his mom and his great-grandmother, Edie, in the house. That was it. And I think that's a big shock. When he graduated college, we are told that he takes a job up at the canning factory. So he cans tuna fish, and all he does all day is chop the heads off the tuna fish and then separate the fish from the head. That's all he does all day. Imagine. And Lewis is a very artistic person, which I think most of the Finches are in their own right, very artistic. But he loves video games, very relatable. So in his mind, he makes up this game almost, this story of where he is the protagonist, and he travels all these distant lands, and he has all these cities that belong to him. He becomes a king. And then he seeks out a partner, and at the very end, he wants to marry the partner, and then he bows his head to receive his crown, and you can already guess probably what happens, because he's using this guillotine to chop the fish. He just, in real life, presumably, Lewis just puts his head under the guillotine, lets it chop its head off, and that's how he dies. And we know this by narration through the letter that the psychiatrist writes to Dawn, his mom. I like the visuals of this a lot and the way you play it, because literally while you have to move your mouse, for instance, to move the fish to be chopped, you use your other hand to navigate this game that Lewis is making, the story that he's making. You are on this boat and you're traveling down the stream, for instance, and you have to use your WASD keys to move around. And it's wild how much you're able to, it's a little hard at first, double tasking like that, but it gets so much easier.
You get into the rhythm very fast.
And you lose yourself in this game.
It's such an accurate portrayal of dissociation,
yes.
Especially, and depression. And if anything, since when you get the hang of doing the fish chopping, you get so used to it, you're dissociating from it too.
Exactly.
I would definitely find myself not even really thinking about that I was chopping fish anymore, because it's such a swift motion.
Mm-hmm.
You really only need to pay attention to the walking of the keyboard, because that's where all the action is.
Exactly.
That's where all the fun color is.
It's where the fun color is where the music is coming from. I don't care about the sound of the fish.
Yeah.
It's awful. But yeah, it's where the music is coming from. It's where the color is, what stimulates your brain. And in the end, it's a story of how he felt the world that he made up was more real than the one that he was living in. So he didn't see the point to keep living in this world. Why would you if you have this wonderful story in your head? And it's definitely, it's very scary as someone who has been very, very depressed at some point in her life. And I'm sure a lot of people can agree. It is sometimes easier to think of this way out than of thinking a reason to staying in, because everything you make up in your head is nicer, or you can think of nicer things than staying here So it is very scary to see this play out. And I very much understand the choice that he makes for himself, which is scary. It's even scarier to me because I want to say, and I think this is also important, there's always a reason to stay here. Like if you're listening to this and you're struggling, there is always a reason to stay. This world is beautiful and wonderful and colorful, and there's so many wonderful people in it. And it's hard sometimes to see that reason to stay in, and everything you make up in your head gets bigger and bigger. But trust me, if you talk to people and if you let them help you, it'll get better, and it can get better. Check out the links in the description if you're struggling right now.
Yes, because I think everyone can relate to the feelings of dissociation and the mundane task of doing something and doing the same thing every single day, and then asking yourself, is this really all I am as a person, and what more is there to my life? And you kind of go down this rabbit hole of an existential crisis of, am I even worth anything? Is my life worth anything? And that can be a very scary rabbit hole to go down, especially if you're dealing with heavy depression and escapism, which relatable. I think I was in a hole like that a while ago now, which I'm happy to say, but I've been out of it. But it can be a hard thing. But it's easy to say that things will get better when you're not in that headspace, because when you are, it's like, well, how do you know?
That's very true, yeah.
How do you know? Like it's been like
so
this
true.
And I can say that because I've been there, especially when friends try to make me feel better about it. I've been there with that same mindset of, you don't know what you're talking about. This is how it's always going to be, and I'm always going to be terrible, and that's how my life is. And then a month later, a year later, I look back to when I said those things, and I can't help, cringe isn't the right word, but I can't help just be, Kat, relax. You're fine.
You just kind of want to give yourself a hug from back then and be like, it's okay. I know you're feeling this way right now, but
in a way, you're a lot nicer to past Kat than I would be. I was thinking more of like a slap on the back of the head.
No, I'm very nice to my past selves because I want that compassion. Yeah.
That's you are nicer. Maybe I should take a lesson from you.
Hey, I did that at work. Listen, I luckily live in a country where therapy is free.
So
where it's paid for by the state. So I'm in a very...
There you go. So maybe that's...
I was in a good spot where I was able to go to a day clinic, and we did a lot of work on mental health and stuff. And that was one of the things, is like, just be compassionate to your former selves, because they needed that in the moment, as they needed compassion.
This is why I'm thankful to have you, and especially Wyatt and all of my close friends, because it's the reminder of, be more compassionate to your past self, because you know more now than you did then. And in my case, I was unmedicated for a lot, meaning I'm now diagnosed with epilepsy, and I was having seizures, like dissociative seizures, call back to dissociation, and nobody really knew, and I didn't even know. So it was kind of like this fading in and out of reality, which made living hard.
Oh, absolutely.
Go figure. But yeah, thinking of that headspace literally like 5 years ago and now, I'm so much happier and better and more secure in my relationships. I don't necessarily know what I'm doing with my life. I think I'm still in that kind of I'm repeatedly chopping fish at the moment, which is fine. I don't think I'll always do that, which is the difference between Lewis and I.
You see a future for yourself.
Yeah.
Yeah. Just not what kind of future. We'll figure it out along the way.
We'll figure it out. And we'll figure it out.
Hey, see, I'm not even sure what I'm going to do with my life forever, and I'm going to be a mom soon. So you know what? I don't think anyone ever knows exactly what they're doing. I think I
No.
talked about my grandmother about this at some point. I asked her when she felt like a grown up, and she looked at me like, I'm not grown up. And she was 85 at that point with like multiple great grandchildren and great grandchildren. So I'm not trying to. I'm not trying anymore. You know, I'm just
No.
having a good time now, and I don't care if I adhere to a standard or not. Fuck that.
And a part of growing up, at least for me, is the realization that all the adults in my life are full of shit.
Do you think this game mirrors that in some way? Because I feel like kind of sometimes it does, because the adults don't seem to be doing lots of good stuff.
Yeah, definitely.
There's a lot of kids dying under the adult supervision, and even if we learn about people who are adult and about their story, it's also not as if they figured out anything. For instance, Walter, he just locks himself under the house in this bunker and lives there for like, what, 20 years, 30 years, and he just doesn't want to come out again.
No.
And then when he does, he gets hit by a train, unfortunately. I want to kind of circle back to how mental health is displayed in this story, and what the stories in particular evoke certain feelings, and how the characters are displayed. I think we already talked at length about Lewis. Just want to add that his story is very human, and you don't feel judgmental either way, neither towards the psychiatrist, because you could also be saying, well, why didn't the psychiatrist say anything? I think she tried, she just didn't see the extent of where Lewis was going, basically. And I don't blame her for that. And then also Lewis, like, why did he do that? Well, because of course that was his only way that he could handle it. And nobody in his life knew exactly what he was going through, which is why it's so important to tell other people and reach out about what you're going through. So important. So I think his story is his character is portrayed as very human.
Yes.
Right. And I think that's for all the stories of the people. You never go like, oh, what, like you might go like, oh no, why did that happen? But you're never, I never really blame the characters. They're written that you have more compassion for them and their stories, I would say.
I only blame the
Edie.
great-grandmother. I only blame Edie.
I do blame her for Molly's death.
I blame her.
Just for everything?
Yeah.
That's really interesting. I don't. I think she has a very interesting coping mechanism, but I don't necessarily blame her for the things that are happening. I think she's also being a victim of sorts of these things, and I think she must be traumatized because she lost all of her kids quite young.
Well, of course, she is traumatized. And I guess I'm kidding a little when I say I blame her for everything. I don't. I do blame her. I agree with you on Molly's death. And I do think it's difficult because then throughout the game, Edith talks about how her and her grandmother, got closer, and Dawn didn't approve of that relationship.
I understand.
And I'm assuming, so take this with a grain of salt,
Mm-hmm.
if it was some type of like grooming relationship too, of putting stories in her head of about the family and this curse, and setting her up for failure.
Mm.
And I think Dawn was paranoid and might have saw through that.
I can see that.
It's hard to say that she's completely innocent because she is. There's no such thing as a perfect victim,
No.
I suppose.
I can see that. I can see it also a different way. I can see it as Edith sort of seeking out answers to these things and not finding the answers that her mom might have given her. Because her mom is a person that is very most like logic based. Like you can tell from the books maybe that she has in her classroom and stuff. She's more like she seems more like a logic based person to me as a teacher. But maybe that wasn't enough for Edith, and she tried to find more answers for herself. And instead of letting this child like kind of make up stories in her own mind that might have been also quite traumatizing,
Right.
that might have been a way for the grandmother, like great grandmother, to calm her down. And it seems to have resonated with Edith because she is very much has this very artistic brain and is very, very emotional at heart. And the way she talks about it makes it seem like her great grandmother was more the person that understood her, versus she didn't get along with her mom that well and the way her mom did things. So I can also see it that way, of Edie causing this cleft between mother and daughter, but not out of maliciousness, but out of trying to provide answers for this young kid that may be less traumatic than the real stuff. But I also like your analysis of it, and I think it's like two different ways of it. I mean, I'm pretty sure there's like 100 ways you can interpret this, but yeah.
Anyways, I just love the ambiguity. It's left up to interpretation, and I appreciate that because I love your thoughts about it, because
Me too.
I would have never thought of it. Same thing with Milton's story. I was interested to find out that a lot of people assumed he escaped the house, because I thought it was so, I don't want to say obvious that he got like stuck inside or something, but I just assumed I was a part of the majority. And to find out that I'm not necessarily was an interesting realization.
But I'm definitely with you on this. I also don't think that he escaped, because I mean, I do love your interpretation as well, and I do like, because there is like a literality to some of these stories, and when Edith says the house swallowed him up, that's the image I have on my brain as well. Do you think there's any other stories that are particularly connected to mental health, or that have mental health on their like forefront aside from Lewis's?
I'm coming up blank. I can only think of Walter with his like agoraphobia.
Mine is Sam.
Oh, with his PTSD.
Because yeah, and heavy like
You're so right.
repression and stuff. So Sam is Dawn's father, and Sam is Calvin's twin. So when Calvin dies when he's 11, they share a room. He has to sleep in that room until he's 17, 18 and can move out. And he does instantly and joins the military as a war photographer. And I think his story is one of more of how male mental health is overlooked a lot today, or it still then and still very much unfortunately today. That's why suicide rates for young men are very, very high, because a lot of the times, especially cis straight men don't seek help. A lot of the times it's more of they seek what's the name? Ablenkung. What is Ablenkung in English? Hold on. Distraction. Distraction is always like, you have to at some point get to the point of what is bothering you. If you only seek distraction, it's gonna escalate, I would say. I think that goes for all distraction, for me at least, because they're never gonna get to the root of what's causing it. And I mean, having his twin die so young, being forced to sleep in the same room with him. Well, not literally with him, but with his things from when he was 11 years old. I can see why that would mess you up quite heavily. So what he did then was join the military, and probably definitely had PTSD from that as well. He was a war photographer. It must have meant that he was at the front of many things. He must have seen a lot of shitty things as well. And then when he comes back and he raises his kids, he raises them in this very like military style.
You can see that in the game, because they have a to-do list, and Gregory, who is, a 1-year-old, his to-do list is be a baby.
Like, even he gets it to do.
As if that
even
needs to be written
he gets
down.
one. Like, it's for all the others. They have a very strict day plan of when they have to wake up and what they have to do and what their chores are and, what they have to study and stuff. And then not only does his youngest son, Gregory, die very early on, which I guess then means that he raises his other son and daughter by himself. Like, at least it's implied. But his other son also dies pretty young on the day that he remarries, and he also just dies outside in a storm, gets knocked over by I think it's a totem pole falls on him. That's how his other son dies, and he kind of tries to keep going.
Oh, when he gets hit by a tent that got swept up in the wind when he was flying his kite.
I'm pretty sure it's a totem pole. It's this one, like, because it's like lying on. Pretty sure.
Oh, you're right. States that a tent and subsequently a large totem pole were blown over by high winds.
The tent does get blown up. It's on the day that Sam remarries, and on that day his other son then dies in the storm outside, hit by debris. Which I can't even imagine.
And they forgot about him.
They did forget about Gus.
They self-reported themselves and said
no.
They didn't think about him.
Yep.
Until they found his body. Ouch.
Imagine. Don't.
That is my biggest fear.
Like, don't imagine, but imagine.
Don't imagine, but, like, can you imagine?
Uh-huh. And then 1 year later, after his other son died, he goes on this camping trip with his daughter, presumably maybe to make a happy family, also sort of make happy memories somehow in all this mess. He goes on this hunting trip with her. She doesn't really want to go hunting, but he does that. It's this thing. I can, when your dad does something, goes on like this big trip with you, and you're like, I kind of don't really want to do this, but I also want to bond with my dad. So you're going along, and she shoots the buck. It turns out the buck isn't really dead, but only half dead, and it ends up kicking him down the mountain, leaving his daughter there alone, which I only just realizing she was alone. How did she get home? Holy Jesus.
I honestly assumed they were like around their property.
Hopefully.
I assumed for some reason, just like the location of it all, but
hopefully.
Who knows?
But yeah, no, I think his story is one of this repressed element of mental health and of coping outside it.
To add on to that, because even before his death, Dawn is crying over the deer they just shot, and he's repeatedly telling her, don't pay attention to that, pay attention to the camera. Don't pay attention to that, pay attention to the camera. Even though that's right in front of you, pay attention to the camera. Focus on the performance, pose. He's, prioritizing the, air quotes, control of the image and not being, I guess, emotionally present to stop himself from getting knocked off a fucking cliff. That's
absolutely hit the nail on the head, and I think that makes sense why he sought solace in the military, because he needed that very like heavy control and structure for himself to not get lost in his own feelings, which is an interesting juxtaposition to his very heartfelt and very emotional letter that he sends Kay, his first wife, about Gregory that we talked about earlier, because I think that one is very heartfelt and very emotional and very imaginative as well, which is in complete juxtaposition to how we usually
for sure
know him, which also is, I think, adding to this. The characters are very three-dimensional, and I think that's beautiful and makes it so that they're very like morally gray, and you have to figure out yourself how you feel about them and how you relate to them or not. But I just wanted to mention a story because I think it's a story that we see a lot these days, or have seen a lot back then as well. Because if you talk about mental health with your grandfather and stuff, it's always like, oh, we didn't have that. But you had alcoholism and you had other things, you know? But it's like, we didn't have that. We didn't have mental health. I'm like, no, I'm sure you did. I'm sure you did. But you just didn't talk about it in that way. And I'm really hoping that we're in a world where there's more openness to also for men to be more emotional and to get help and ask for help and to not have that be like an unmanly thing.
Right.
So, which I think, like, talking about your emotions to your peers, talk to your bros about how you feel, okay? Talk to your bros about your depression, please, because it's important. Like, don't just be like, I just got broken up with, whatever, I have a beer now. I don't know, you know?
For all of these issues, links in the description, y'all.
Yes.
If you have any issues, go help yourself. No one can help you unless you help yourself.
Yeah, it's a hard truth, but a very important one. But yeah, no, build a relationship with if you're a dude, build a relationship with other dudes and start talking about your feelings together. I promise you, your friendship is going to go stronger from that. Like, I see it around me. I have a very healthy male people around me who talk about their feelings regularly with their peers, and that makes me really happy.
Same.
And it's so nice to see that happening. And they have like incredible friendships because of that.
So I like that you say that, because I was just thinking it's a shame that this is still it's not a huge issue, but it's still, you know, kind of it's
partly coming back, man.
Yeah, unfortunately. But I'm fortunate that at least in my circle of friends, it seems as if it's gotten better. Just from what I'm presented in my groups, but I don't know if that's just
we gotta stay hopeful
in my healthy bubble, or if the world is actually changing, or if it's, you know, still bad. I don't know.
Gotta stay helpful, and we gotta focus on I think that we touched on a good amount of things here especially about mental health in this game. I would say if you haven't played this game yet, even if we talked about it so much, still play it, because it's experiencing it and hearing about it are two different things.
It is not a long game either. It's not one where you can like go off and get distracted. It is very ABC, you know?
It's, in a good way. What about the conclusion of the story? We learn that Edith dies. She leaves behind her one and only child. How did that make you feel? What do you think about, like, do you think that child is going to keep on carrying this quote unquote curse, or do you think there's a break in the story here and the narrative ends here and something new starts?
It's hard to say, because from what we know of Edith, she dies young.
Yeah.
Man, it's hard to know. I can only assume that since their child is going back and there hasn't been a lot of time in between then and now, in my opinion, that the curse, air quotes, will continue on, because they made that decision to go back in the first place. I think even taking a step on the ferry with the thought and intention to go and explore and learn. And I guess that is the thing, intention. What is the intention? What are you trying to learn? And I suppose that's something we don't necessarily know.
It could be, I mean, we don't really know, but for me I also wanted to know my family story and where I came from when I was younger, and I would assume this is even more prevalent, and please correct me if I'm wrong, if you are a foster child, because I presume that child grew up in the system. When you don't have your biological parents around you, that you want to know where you came from at some point, and you want to know like where your biological story resides. You want to know your ancestry in that sense. So I think it's interesting because they grew up and so far removed from everything. And now they're coming back, but it's more of a, I just want to be witness to this, and I'm not the one experiencing this.
Sure.
So I think there is a sort of break here, but I'm also interesting because it's like you said, the intention of, I mean, they had the diary that Edith wrote to them, but they wanted to go back and experience it, right? There's a difference in that. So that's definitely an interesting intent for me, but I don't know. I think there might have been. I want to believe there's this sort of not cleansing, but there's a sort of break in this story, and that they go on forward, making a story of a family for themselves, and not kind of dragged down, I guess, by their ancestry in that sense. I want to hope.
It's very unanswered if the curse belief shaped their lives or if it was already set in stone.
Oh yeah, it which I love. It's a what was first, the chicken or the egg kind of thing. What was first, the family curse or the people believing in the family curse, which made them cursed in the first place, or is it just a very tragic story that you can have? I will say, while the ending is very unexplained and it is very open, again, the ambiguity in this game is unmatched.
Yeah.
I do like it. Usually sometimes these can make me feel like kind of hanging, like, okay, but I needed something more. In this sense, I didn't think I needed anything more. I like wondering about it, but it doesn't leave me sleepless. From
empty. It doesn't feel empty.
Yeah, exactly. It has substance. Exactly. It makes me no longer be hungry.
Yeah. But I like the conversation it opens.
Exactly. I mean, that's why we wanted to talk about it. That's why I wanted you to play this, because this is one of my all-time favorite games, and I do keep coming back to it, and I will keep recommending it to people until, I don't know, you can't play it anymore because of something. Who knows? But yeah, that's why.
Because Steam gets shut down. Steam gets bought.
Well, then I'll find a physical copy.
Yeah, I know. We're gonna go back.
I will go back to physical, baby.
I think we're starting to. I think
what's
funny
definitely
is that we've done a full circle back to cable because internet is doing bundles with Netflix and HBO and stuff like that, we've done a full circle, and I can only laugh.
Yeah.
Anyway.
You're so right. No. But yeah. Should we jump into our ratings for the game?
Yes, ma'am.
So how are the characters with mental health disorders portrayed? I would say very human and very real.
There's a great representation through all the characters.
Which leads me to my next question. If the characters who suffer from mental health disorders are the villains, and I would very much say no.
No.
They're the victims of their own story. You might disagree with some of them. Like disagree with, for instance, how Sam parents.
They're emotionally limited.
But yeah, there's a difference. They definitely are not. They're like victims of their own story, if anything.
None of them really know how to process.
They're not villainized at all.
No, none of them know how to process grief in healthy ways, is what it seems like.
Which, very relatable. If I didn't have years and years of therapy, I would not know.
Oh, for sure.
And I still, if something happens, still, I'm like very, I don't know. I would still struggle, I would say. How does it stereotype?
Does it?
Yeah, that's what I'm thinking right now.
They're all so different. I can't necessarily think of
no.
I guess Walter's case of agoraphobia being like this bunker dwelling mole man almost is kind of stereotyping.
I can see that.
But that's the only one that really I can think of per se.
Yeah. We have the...
But does that even... Would you even say that makes sense?
I can see that, and I think in stereotyping it also breaks it for me a little bit. You know what I mean? To a certain point, it's just so on the nose. But I think it's done a very metaphorical, yeah. I see that though. I think the only other one I can think of is a story we didn't even talk about, the former child star Barbara, who then is like washed up and only wants to be famous, presumably wants to be famous, and then gets killed by probably a crazy ex-fan or someone like that. But that is not, it's more the story and not the character. Like, it's just the story of like former child star, now teenager, struggled heavily with not being famous anymore.
Substance abuse and not being famous, yeah.
Probably substance. I don't know. Is that part of it? Perhaps.
I'm just saying, like, I don't mean with Barbara.
Okay,
I'm just saying,
just the story of the child star in general.
In general, the washed up child star.
No, I see that. Yeah. How, I don't want to say how much, but like, how does the game trigger? And specifically in what way? Because we already talked about triggering emotion isn't a bad thing per se.
No.
But it definitely has, there's a difference between very stereotypical imagery and that are put into a game to trigger specifically, and of something being weaved into a story, eliciting a certain emotion that might not be a good thing for everyone. Because there's a very big reason why I don't play this game right now, being pregnant, because I don't think I can handle it right now. No. So it does definitely trigger me.
The imagery and perspective shifts that it does between the characters to immerse you, the player, into that character's mental state. From like Gregory's childlike wonder to Lewis's
disillusioned, yeah.
His adult wonder, but his complete dissociation. I don't know. It's such a real human experience, being like lonely and fearful. So I think it invokes a lot of empathy, because you're crying not because, well, I guess you're crying because it's sad, but it's not like this, because I feel like sadness is a spectrum. Like most things, there's different types of sadness, and it's not this like overwhelming, I guess it's like grief. It's like, you lost something that was really innocent and could have been helped, and you just can't help but relate to it in a way. Yeah, it's just, it resonates.
Yeah. I will say it is a game about death in the broadest sense. So if death is something at the moment of playing, especially the death of young children at the moment of playing, that's not something that you could handle, I would heavily discourage you from playing it at that moment. Because it is not graphic in a sense that it shows the deaths, but you feel them. It is very emotionally loaded in that sense.
Especially since I said, it immerses you in their mental state. And as a child,
yes,
you don't understand a lot of the things that you're seeing. But as the adult, you do. So when they're experiencing things, they're kind of very innocent to it. But as the adult, you're worried because you know what's happening. And you can't help but have that anxiety and anticipation of this. You already know what's gonna happen.
Yeah, I would say from the games we've been playing, this is definitely more on the triggering side. Like, especially comparing it to our last game, which was Space Sprouts. Night and day. Night and day, you guys. Okay,
completely.
Definitely night and day. Or even Thomas Was Alone,
completely
night and day. This is very much more, has a very much more triggering effect, but it is not, and I think that's the next part, is it a plot device or important on its own? It is a story about their whole family and how they died. Of course it's important for the story. It's not just put in.
It is the story.
It is the story, which also, of course, it makes it a plot device because that's part of it.
Yeah.
Right? But it's not put in. It's not as if you're playing the story and out of the blue a baby dies, but it's introduced to you over several other deaths. And that is just part of the story.
Yeah. I could also think, Gregory's death could have been done in a very horrific way.
Oh, absolutely.
That could have pulled, there's a lot of games that have these cute, really innocent moments, and then it hard cuts to something really either graphic or just visually upsetting.
You had Little Misfortune. We had that in there, right? Like the guy hanging.
Exactly.
It's very beautiful visually, and then you see like a hanging body and this child not understanding, and it's George the Piñata. So, it's differently done in that way.
And, you can't help, because of games that we've had like that, you can't help but hold your breath for a second until it all goes away and, safe for the most part, back to where it was. So while it is, I would say, the most emotionally taxing game we played, in my opinion, I would say it's not emotionally taxing in the way Little Misfortune was. Your imagery is safe, I suppose. Yeah.
It's different. It definitely is different. And I think because it has like a way, this conclusion at the end of it, it doesn't leave you feeling hanging and empty. It plays out all the stories. Sorry. Oh my God, good. We're leaving that in. It leaves you with you have played through these stories and you have felt those emotions, but it sums it up nicely. And I think for at least can contain my emotions, or it contains that. Like, it gives you a little hug at the end. It's like, well done. You've played through all of this. You have felt your feelings.
Yeah.
It's a good way. It's a good game for that. It's a good way if you need to feel your feelings, to feel that, but it doesn't leave you with like nasty stuff later. It doesn't leave you feeling awful. It has like a good feeling going out, at least for me. It could be different for other people, but
no, I agree with that. I agree with that feeling, because to me it felt as if, here is your history, you are the next generation, the path is yours, do with it as you will.
Like a good therapy session.
Yeah.
Depending on if you're afraid of death, it gives you a space to feel those fears, so you don't have to feel them in your own life. You can go into this game and feel them in there.
That's a good way to put it.
You have like a safe space to feel those feelings, and to be afraid, and to be sad, and to feel grief, because that's important. We can't not do this, like, don't do what Sam does and be like, oh, you're crying, I'm going to distract you. Look at the camera. Look over here. Hello. No, don't cry. Look over here. This is more important. It's important to feel your feelings and sit in them.
However uncomfortable.
And then also to have an end to that. And I think that's exactly, but that game gives you that. It just might at certain times be a little bit much for you. So that's why we also always put the trigger warnings at the head of the episodes, of course. But yeah. Overall recommendation.
Oh.
Out of 10 tuna fish with their head chopped off, how many tuna fish with the head chopped off are you going to give this game?
I would give it 10. I think I would give it 10 headless tuna fish that are canned perfectly and ready to go. I think it's a beautiful game. I think when I first played it, I made a note that the sound design, and I feel like I say this all the time, I love sound design. I love sound. There's classical music at the beginning, and it shows up more times. There's classical scores all throughout. The narration, Valerie Rose Lohman is the narrator, and she does a great job. Her voice is very somber. It's gloomy. Yes, I would say it's very somber. It's very soothing in a way. At least to me it is. And also just the ambiance of the house creaking, and then there's the boat sounds, and then the trees rustling. It just adds a lot. I don't think you realize how much that adds to a game. I very much appreciated that. Also, the artwork is beautiful. The storytelling is beautiful. I loved all of the different family members, and it was fun to learn about history, especially I just lost, I mean, I didn't just lose him. He passed away a few years ago now. My grandfather, and it was interesting to learn about his parents because they came from Moscow. So I have Russian ancestry, and it's interesting to learn about. I'm only a third generation American, fourth generation American. And that's interesting to think about, like where my family history has gone. So if you're really into that stuff, it's a fun game to explore. Overall, emotionally, a great emotional investment from start to finish. And I played it all in, I usually don't play games all in one sitting, and I played that game all in one sitting because it was that captivating. It was like watching a movie. So
yeah, it really is.
I think of all those reasons I give it a 10, highly recommend it for a lot of people, and because it's relatable. Messenger. Out of how many kites would you give What Remains of Edith Finch out of 10?
I think I'm also gonna give it 10 kites out of 10. We've been so uncritical of the games we're playing, but also listen, guys, we're playing the games we love to play.
True.
For all the reasons you've already mentioned, I very much heavily agree on all the design choices. I find them fantastic. The sound design is incredible, and the voice actors are really wonderful. Of course, you have the main voice actor that Kat already named, and then you have a couple others, but all of them do a great job. And then, yeah, the pacing of the game I found also very pleasant.
Yeah.
And the first time I played this game, I also played it in one sitting. It's just one of those games you have to play in one sitting. You can't let it go.
No,
it doesn't let you go.
Absolutely,
you
not.
need to see it through to the end, and that's what makes it perfect. And it's perfectly the length is perfect for playing it one sitting as well. I think it's 2.5, maybe 3 hours, depending on how long you spent on each story. But you can definitely make it through in 2. But yeah, no, I think that's one of the, and because it is one of those games that makes me think, it makes me reflect, and it is very interesting to think about family history now, growing a child inside of me, becoming a mom,
definitely
thinking about where I came from and where we're going, because I also believe that generational trauma is definitely a thing. So knowing more about my family history has helped me to cope with my own stuff, and I'm a firm believer of every generation is helping to cope with that a little bit more, especially growing up in like Europe, because my family history is very much, or especially in Germany, is very much tied to the war, of course, because that's where my ancestors have always lived, is here. And having, like, knowing that and knowing where we came from and knowing what each generation has brought in, I feel quite hopeful that I can be another filter towards that generational trauma for my child, and that they can grow up a little bit better. So
yeah, because for sure, not only cope, but be like preparation.
Exactly. And then, I know that I have ADHD. My husband is definitely on some sort of neurodivergent spectrum, but we go into this knowing it. And I know it's hereditary.
Right.
So I expect my child to also have some sort of neurodivergence, most likely, at least. But I go into it with the knowledge of what it looks like. So I can help, hopefully, a little bit better. Because my parents had no idea, especially for women and for girls, what that could look like. So quite hopeful for the future, actually, what that entails. I think I have to be being a mom soon. Like, I think I have to have a little bit hold out hope. And I think that's also how the game ends.
It's all you can do at this point.
It really is. It's the most, what's it called? Most resistant. A token of resistance that we can do is have hope.
Be resilient.
Yeah, it's what the game leaves me with as well. So
Good.
I think that's a nice way to tie it up here. Thank you so much for having this discussion with me, Kat, and with playing my game recommendation. I'm really happy about that.
Thank you. I very much enjoyed it. I think I wouldn't have gotten to this game as fast if it weren't for you. This is why I love doing this, because we play new games. And speaking of new games, I was scouring our little list, and this was recommended to us by a friend. I don't know which friend. It's Refined Self, the personality test game.
Oh.
It's on Steam. The reviews are very positive. Little description is, games can really show someone's personality, don't you think? By way of a simple exploration-based adventure, this data science game analyzes your actions to estimate your personality.
Ooh.
So let's take a little personality test, why don't we?
I love that. Oh, I'm excited. I love it's pixel graphics as well.
Yeah, it's a little
very excited.
It's an 8-bit game. It's 8-bit mixed with, it kind of reminds me of Stardew in a way, how the art is set up loosely.
Oh, I was thinking of like the old Pokemon more, but yeah.
That is also a good, yeah, no, you're totally right.
No, I'm well of both. Interesting. I'm very excited to play that. I think it got recommended to us by my community member and mod Holly the Poppy, because I remember her putting a lot of games with their Steam link into a channel, I think 3 years ago, but I could be wrong. I could very well be wrong.
We have a lot going on in our lives.
That's who I think
You're
of.
You're gonna be a mother soon.
I mean, it's been 3 years. Okay. I love that idea, Kat. Let's play that. Refined Self, the personality test game. It's gonna be next.
Awesome.
Very exciting. We'll see when the next episode goes up. As you guys know, we're not stressing ourselves, and neither should you.
We're just two gals living our best lives. And you decided to listen. Which, I don't know which is worse.
Hey! That's
okay, you're right. I'm sorry.
What do you mean, what is worse? That is the perfect thing.
I don't know what I meant by that. You're right. I'm sorry. All right. I love you.
I think it's perfect. Love you too, Kat. All of you guys, take care of yourselves. Please check the links in the description if you're suffering right now and need some help. There are some helpful links in there.
Yes.
Thanks so much for listening to the podcast. Make sure to give it 5 stars if that's possible, or a like, depending on where you're watching or listening.
Thank y'all for listening. I love you.
Bye.
Bye.